Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Imizizi conversation. I am with Pastor Blose again, our beautiful, beautiful guest. I know how everybody enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome.
They have been wanting for this part 2.
Yeah.
So we are doing part 2 of dismantling notions of success from a religious perspective. And I think I just wanted to, maybe you don't have to introduce yourself, but introduce yourself anyways.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm still Pastor Blose. I'm still Pastor Blose. Yeah, I've moved to PE.
Oh, yes,
from Durban.
Yes.
So I've relocated here, studying full-time and parenting full-time.
Isn't that fun, right?
It is. And taxing. Yeah, I'm searching for success in that realm.
So maybe just as a start, you can maybe do like a recap of how you were introduced to Christianity.
So yeah, well, at home, obviously, with my parents. So both my parents come from very religious, orthodox backgrounds. My father, Jehovah's Witness, my mother, Seventh-day Adventist. Very sectarian Christian communities, and very like different but similar in lots of ways. So yeah, I was in between those two sort of faith communities. So I've come from this very, very religious background and family, from immediate family to extended family, very involved. My cousins on my father's side are all in ministry. The Jehovah's Witness, we call it a church. And then I'm a pastor. My grandmother's brother was a pastor.
Oh my word!
So
it's a lineage.
It's a lineage of ministers.
So you're hoping that your kids are also going to follow the path?
No. No, my family has given enough to the church.
So as you're speaking, actually, I just remembered that I was thinking about something. Someone was talking about the difference between religion and spirituality.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things we're saying is how religion and how it is delivered is what kind of limits our thinking and gives us the notions of success that we currently have. Actually non-success that we currently have, right? So I was just thinking about religion as a concept versus a spirituality, and I saw a quote somewhere. And it says a religious person will do what he is told, no matter what is right. Whereas a spiritual person will do what is right, no matter what he is told.
Sure.
Thoughts?
Yeah. You should have read that to me before. Let me mull over it. Yeah, so I mean, religion is an institution, right? That's okay, start here. Faith, belief is literally people trying to map the world. It's how people trying to make sense of the world. That's what faith is. Faith, like culture, it's people trying to make sense of the world that they live in. You try and find explanations for the inexplicable. You try and make sense of the unpredictable, So that's what faith does. It's you trying to make sense of your world. Why did that happen? How did that happen? Who's responsible for that? What's the purpose of that? Is there grand meta-narrative or meta-purpose behind everything that's happening? Why are we here? Those are the questions that we're trying to answer. So in religion. So most of the time we come up with the same or similar answers. So when I talk to you and you sort of echo back what I've been thinking, what I've been suspecting, or what I've sort of discovered, which we call revelation, and then we say, okay, let's come together because we seem to agree on this, and let's move together and help each other navigate this life, right? And as we move together, we then sort of institutionalize this. How do we manage this relationship? How do you facilitate this relationship? That's how you get churches, that we're now all moving together because we're in agreement with how life works. We're in agreement with how we perceive and understand life, and then
so it's between me and
you. Yes, that's
because me and you have an understanding
of this thing. So, but then now we have a church, so we're going to be existing in a community together, right? So how do we manage this relationship, right? So to make sure that we don't abuse, misuse each other, right? And to ensure that we also get the most out of each other, far as we. But remember, the starting point is agreement, right?
Yes.
We agree on this. That's so we're together because we agree on this.
I hear you.
And that is so. But we come together because we want to grow in our agreement, right? So we'll come together because we want to grow together. But as long as we keep agreeing. But that's not how growth works.
As we keep agreeing.
That's not how growth. Exactly. That's not how growth works, though. Like,
because when you might find something in the growing. You might start going off
Yes.
And then you're going off and I'm like, no, but I don't agree with that now.
So you don't actually say, I don't. It's like, we.
As a
all
church.
of a sudden, we don't agree with that. We don't. That's not what we do. But then, that articulating that also says we're ostracizing you because you're now operating outside the parameters of this thing that we agree on. But where I was going and more to the quote is that religion then sort of manages people. It doesn't manage truth. It doesn't manage growth. It just manages people's relationship. It's meant to manage relationships and how we move together. And so the truth is independent. The truth is transcendent. The truth is cannot be legislated. You're right. You can't say this is the truth. This is what we believe.
Yes.
Because the moment you arrive at belief and what we believe,
it's no longer the truth.
It's no longer the truth. We can't grow. It's what we understand and perceive the truth to be. Right.
Sure.
But so then we can never grow beyond that because this is what we agree, we believe, this is what we shall always believe.
I think the more I talk to you, the more complex it becomes.
Yeah.
Because you're right, because the truth then can never really be the same for me and you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for each person to understand what their truth is and have that relationship by themselves with God.
With God, yeah. And then, but then where does community come in? So, one of the most brilliant illustrations I've ever seen is that there's this guy a blind guy standing behind an elephant, and he says, it has a very flimsy nose. And then the other one standing in front said, it's got quite a thick tail, right? And the other one says, its skin is all over the show. But he was playing with the ears, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they're all talking about the same beast, same animal, but different perspectives. So when you put those perspectives together, then you get sort of like a complete understanding and picture of the animal. And that's how truth works. And that's why it's important, by the way, even though spiritual we are, to still exist in community, because it is community that then adds different perspectives to this truth, which is this huge elephant that we can't gain a complete perspective of because of our situatedness, right? But so then I need you to tell me, hey, from this side it feels and looks like this, and from this side it feels, but it's still the same.
It's still the same thing.
Yeah. Whereas
so looking at it in different angles and different views, and that's how, as humans in any case, because how I'm brought up and my background and my way of thinking will make me see the world and the things I interact with in a very different way to how you are doing it. And I remember we were having this conversation with Ulisa yesterday about how the way we are raised impacts the way we react to things as grown-ups. And it could be just the around dishes. Yeah. You know, to me now I was raised to do not go to sleep with dishes in the sink. Like I remember my dad even once woke us up, 4 of us. There was a spoon. Don't know who left the spoon. Still today we still don't know. He woke each and it was like there's a spoon in the sink. 12 nights.
You have to wash
school
it.
Night. He was like, maybe you need to help each other.
To wash it.
You know, so as I was growing up, I could it doesn't matter how tired I could never go to bed with dishes in the sink. Now I meet another person, maybe we're in a relationship, and they're just like, I was forced to do that. Yeah. But because of that, I actually do not want to wash those dishes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a brilliant intervention there, because then how do you sort of come together and live with people when you possess like an idea of life that seems contradictory and clashes with other people? Yeah. I mean, spirituality, religion, or faith teaches us about compassion, understanding, and these are all like qualities that require us to be soft and not hard in our beliefs. True. Right? To sort of make others understand where we're coming from, but also for us to understand where they're coming from, to be in their shoes, right? One of the most uncomfortable things, and the reason why we don't like interacting and engaging people outside of our space, a sphere of belief, and I'll call it ritual, right? Because life is ritualistic, you know, you get to do things, is because of how alternative information or additional information sort of disproves some of the things we've come to hold dear. So when you attach value to not going to sleep, before without washing dishes, right? So I'm like,
exactly
so I'm not going to sleep with that because then you attach value to that. The reason why I don't go to sleep without having washed dishes is because I'm a clean person. Therefore, anyone else who doesn't do this,
right? You're dirty, you're nasty, how dare you?
So the moment I label myself in a positive light, and I have to automatically label everyone else who doesn't do things my way in a negative light, and the moment I do that, I close myself off from hearing what they have to say because they want to make me like them.
Yes.
You see it with vaccines currently, you see it with politics. We ascribe certain value to belief, and because we have ascribed that value to our beliefs, we automatically ascribe certain negative connotations to other people's beliefs.
Which is the same thing to a point with faith and religion and Christianity, because if I grew up and I was forced to go to church, which is what most parents do, it's Sunday, Siavuka, and I'm just like, but guys, it's the one day of the week, I don't have to wake up. I've got school tomorrow. So when you grow up, you just like, I didn't understand why, I had to wake up firstly, and I went to church, and this pastor would be talking about how I must do this and this and this and this, and they don't explain how, right? And that's how I suppose as people grow up, they decide, actually I'm atheist. Actually I don't like this God. Actually, and then now I'm sitting with you, who you got there, and you got value out of it. Now Siakabana, we're clashing. You know? And I always wonder, is there a way that we can start introducing religion, Christianity, any religion, in a softer way to kids?
Sure. And kids are very difficult to teach.
Because Ngabo will become adults. And this is now the problems that we stuck with as adults.
Just going back to what you were saying with your parents waking you up to go to church, again, there's a teaching that they sort of entrench when parents do that, and you subliminally you're not conscious of it. So because they themselves want you to go to church because there's something they're afraid of. They're afraid of you turning out like one of their relatives, like a younger brother, the black sheep in the family. So it's always you. So the anger with which they send you to church and they drive you to church is never really out of love. It's never out of a place of wanting you to be a better person. It's always out of fear that you might turn out like the black sheep in the family.
So true.
So let's just let's get you to church.
That's alright. Like physically you look like this person.
So
chances of you having their attributes.
You can exactly. So now it's like masambe, this is my child, Now so when you so the place from which we learn religion most of the time, unfortunately, I mean, parents are always trying to avoid raising the black sheep in their families or raising the dark side of themselves, right? So they're always afraid of that you might have inherited that, so they need to exorcise it out of you, right? So they're always operating from a place of fear. So the way we communicate faith, we communicate religion, we communicate God to our children is out of fear that they don't turn out like the dark parts of us or like the black sheep in our families. So is there a better way to teach kids about God? And sure, my kids are teaching me this like all the time. I think they're making me a better pastor, right? Because they're so honest in their questions. They're so, so inquisitive, and it comes from a place of innocence. You can't handle that innocence with fear. You're going to damage it. You're going to destroy it, right? You can't handle that curiosity with anger and with fear, right? Because you're going to curtail it. They say that a child's genius, I think I've mentioned this in the last conversation, a child's genius manifests itself as an annoyance at an early stage, right? So the fact that your child's always asking you questions
and you can't answer it, you don't understand it, you don't know how to answer it, you just like become annoyed.
So you're like, but that's their genius, right? But because you're annoyed, you're always saying, stop it, what's with the questions, stop jumping, stop talking, stop that. But that's their genius. That's the one outstanding quality they've brought to life. Your job is to harness it, not to curtail it, right? And not to manage it. So yours is to harness it to make sure that it doesn't kill them. But because we keep saying that over and over to kids, stop asking so many questions. Stop. So they stop learning, they stop asking, they stop growing, and they stop developing that genius, that thing, that outstanding part of them. stops developing because umama no tata kakate, they don't like this. It's a bad thing, so I must stop doing it because it's a bad thing. So you've killed that part of them, right? So our job, I think, to communicate this faith. How do we communicate it? How do we present faith? How do we present God? How do we present religion? Let's say religion, but how do we present this whole thing in a way that allows them to thrive, right? Again, in our last conversation, is that when we try and raise our kids to be like us, we do them a disservice. There's already one of us. That's more than enough, right? The goal, I think, is always to try and get them to be better than us, but without pressuring them. But so you don't get them to be better than you by trying to compensate for your own failures, right? So you don't live vicariously through them. So to say you're gonna succeed where I failed, right? It's to what are you gifted? What are you possessing? What has God given you? And that's a very hard thing.
And how do we harness that?
Yeah.
It is very hard. And I there's a picture I love, and I think I've posted it a couple of times, where it says, when a child enters your life, it is a time for you to learn, not to introduce your old beliefs into them.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, what you've just said is that we are so scared to learn from children, because it requires us unlearning so much of our habits and our beliefs and our values, the things we've attached as I'm a clean person, I'm this person. Now you're just like, no, you can't come here, you're 2 years old, ruining my life. What do you know about life to begin with? And we forget to go to there, closer to God. Because I mean, even in the Bible, I'm sure there's a part, I'm not very good in the Bible, don't judge me.
I got you.
But there's a part where Jesus says, Uguti, until you are of pure, like the little ones, you will never know the kingdom of God.
That's in the Bible. It is in the Bible.
I'm glad.
She was right.
And I think the interpretation of that is never said. It's never done justice
That's
to.
True,
because it's the purity, it's the genius of allowing yourself to ask and learn and grow.
What's this guy's name? Is it Degrassi? We used to do these science shows on TV. My goodness.
The old man.
The old man, yeah.
Yes.
And he was talking about that we stopped learning when we tried to sort of outgrow our childness. What child? Likeness, yes, childlikeness. Our, the kid in you.
You're the one who knows the big words. I can't help you.
I'm trying to avoid the big words, actually. Intentionally avoiding the big words. So he was talking about that we stop growing, we stop learning, we stop discovering, because we lose the curiosity of childhood. We lose the kid inside of us dies. We allow the kid inside of us to die. I was I don't know if I should say this publicly, but I was at a place, right? There's a lot of loud music. They'll call it groove, but it wasn't really groove. It was like just a lot of people who were happy and stuff. And so it just happened there. And I was looking at these people, and they were dancing. I can't dance to save my life. They were dancing. They were singing. They were happy, And I'm like, we're going through a pandemic, and these people are so happy, and they're dancing, and they're free.
Yeah.
And I was like, but when did this kind of happiness become taboo? Like that, I can't even say it on TV that or on camera that actually I wasn't there. I was invited, so I'm also trying to extricate myself from that kind of happiness.
Because now you're going to be judged. Why were you around people who were happy?
But I'll tell you why. It's because it's considered immature. It's considered reckless. It's considered what else? Yeah, immature, reckless. We've attached a certain value to that kind of setup, right? But you look at those people, what are in that moment, in that space, what are they? They're kids. Right? And why do they go there?
Free.
They're free. Why do they go there? Because they're tired of adulting, right? They're tired of adulting. And
how many times do you say that?
Yeah.
I'm so tired of adulting.
And it's tiring.
It's pressures and rules and restrictions that we have placed upon ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because society, the next person expects me to be a certain way.
Yeah. So, just finish this point, because people are going to start saying, "Hi, this pastor wants us to go to groove." You say my ministry. So but you look at all these spaces that we go to, the beach, the hiking, right? These are all elements. They've all got components and elements of our childhood, right? They're running around freely and playing around. A friend of mine, they've got a house in Tat, El Chiquin, Elalin, deep valleys, and they've got these rolling hills that have got like grass and stuff. And every time we're there, I just want to take my shoes off and run, through those hills.
You get that feeling with those hills.
So every space that heals you, every space that sort of helps you rest, every space that helps you recover, has elements of your childhood in it, right? That should tell you that don't let the inner child die, right? If you want to grow, make it in life, that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, that innocence, that kindness, that ability to forgive and let go of things without mulling over them, right? To accept apologies without ascribing or attaching any intentions on them. I say sorry to my child and they forgive me. They don't even say, you're only saying sorry because.
So quickly.
Yeah, they're done. And that's why they're so happy, because they don't hold on to these things. Yeah, so everything that our growth, one, is in how we interact and engage with our children, and to not treat them as aberrations, as additions, as inconveniences, but as a very vital and necessary part of our lives and growth. And then to learn from them, because every part of life that heals us is actually reminiscent of our own childhood.
And I must say, honestly, I have learned so much from my children once I've allowed myself to.
Yeah.
To your point, apologizing to them, and when they apologize to you, and I'll be like, it's fine. And I know my son will always be like, do you forgive me?
Yeah.
Because it's fine. It's like, okay, it's fine, And I'll be like, yes, I forgive you. And immediately comes, sits next to me, is moving on to the next topic, because in his mind, but we've moved on, and that's something so difficult for others to do, because now I expect you to do something so big to show your forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things, and I think it's one of the things that we then put in religion, and we're like, for you for God to forgive you, you must do these many, many, many tasks. Because otherwise you are still going to be a sinner for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And which takes a lot of people away.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out what's one of the things your kids ask you that have taught you to pastor differently.
So my son, we were doing a Bible story, and I was telling him the story of these kids that were laughing at the prophet Elijah because he was bald, like me. So I needed to get that lesson in so that he doesn't comment on my head. Yeah. That's what we do, right? You're going to indoctrinate them while they're young, get them while they're young. So I was telling the story, and then said, but really what I was teaching him is that he needs to stop commenting on people's bodies, right, when he meets them. That was a lesson I was trying to get through to him, because he used to
the story of Elijah.
Yeah.
You must go check it out.
Elijah and the boys. And so these boys see this prophet and they laugh at him. They're like, oh, you're bald, ha ha ha. And they laugh at him. But the reaction from Elijah, is so extreme. Now that I think about it, so he then says, for as long as God of heaven lives, right, you will not see tomorrow. And immediately bears come out of the woods, and they devour these boys. The bears tear them apart, and I told that story to my son, but not the bears side. Like it's like, the bears came out and they ate them, right? And then so I was like, what do we learn from this? He kept constantly like, we learn never to make comments about people's bodies and appearances, right? Because they're all made by God. They're all created by God. So then he says, are they all created by God? I'm like, yeah. And he says, so then why did God do that to the boys? So I said, what did God do to the boys? Like allow the bears to kill them?
Yes. Now I'm here wanting to know, as a child, what would you have said to me? Because
I'm just reflecting on this, that I'm trying to teach this guy like a nice lesson, which is what I do as a pastor, right? We're always trying to preach good lessons, good, values, to impart good values. Sometimes the method does more damage than good. Right? So I've just taught him that not commenting about people's bodies is more important than the value that God places on you, right? And that God can kill you
for commenting on people's bodies.
And what I've done is that I've given him a side of God that's retributive, that's angry, that's always ready to take note of even something as insignificant as someone commenting on people's bodies relatively to the evil that surrounds our world. You've got rapists, you've got murderers, you've got racists, you've got misogynists and homophobes, and God is going to be worried about me saying that
person has a weird body of gold.
Right. But he doesn't take care of those, but he's got time to
come kill me as a child.
So I'm just, and I was just thinking about it. I was like, oh, that's a very good question, my boy. And that's all I could say at the time. I said, that's a very good question, right? Because any answer I give him right now won't be...
It'll be defensive.
Yeah, it will be defensive. It won't be enough, and I can't answer it, right? And I can't lie to him. That's the worst thing that I could ever do, right? So it's a very good question, and one day we must ask God about that, right? We have to ask God. So what am I? And he's teaching me there, like the humility that being a pastor doesn't mean I know it all.
Yes.
And admitting that I don't know it all means that I'm always open to learning and growing. That's the only way I can grow and learn. Is that to admit that I've got blind spots, which he shines a light on ever so often, right? And so when I don't, label his questioning as disbelief or lack of faith, right? But a search for understanding, then I become part of that learning process, and I also benefit from that learning process, and that's how I grow, right? And more to this topic, right, on success, that's exactly how you grow, by being adventurous, by being curious, by always being open to learning, and you can learn from anywhere and from anyone, and so that's how I become a better pastor in my home. That's how my kids teach me to become a better pastor. And I don't know how you or where you can learn to become better at what you do, but I guarantee you that unlearning or being open to unlearning is the first thing.
Is one of the things. And I'm actually, as we're speaking, and I know it was not the direction that we had originally decided we were going to go with, but it's making me realize that where we need to start is with the kids.
Yeah.
Because that is where the biggest problem is how we introduce religion and these concepts to them, because then we introduce these notions of success to them in a horrible way.
Sure.
So rather start there and try to make sure that we don't get to a point where we have to even undo it. Where they have to unlearn. And I know I say this to my kids a lot, so when every time I learn something, I'll be telling them, and Latita will be like, we've heard this so many times. I'm like, I only learned this at 30. And do you understand? I'm like, now I have to undo, because I have to remind myself over and over and over that, oh no, I don't believe that anymore, I believe this now. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. If you just listen to me now, you don't have to unlearn, you don't have to do this at 35, you know what I mean? And I think it's so important, because even the notions of success, even the way that they relate to God. I tell my son this a lot. I'm like, you've got a voice in your head that's always speaking. And he's like, do I? I'm like, keep quiet for a minute and realize, And he's like, oh, there is a voice in my head. And I'm like, most of the time though, that voice is not nice to you. But sometimes it is. I'm like, try as much as possible to listen to the nice voice and not to the not nice one. So this one time I remember he's been trying to learn how to backflip. My son is always trying to break himself. I've got a very small trampoline, very tiny. Now he's trying to backflip on this tiny trampoline. I'm like, Maramali. He's like, no, I can do it. I spoke to God.
And he said I can do it.
And then he showed it to me in my head how to do it, and I can do it. But now for me, it was again the problem we have as adults is believing these children, right? Because it's like, come take a video of me. I want to show you. I'm like, why am I bearing witness to that? But in all honesty, I was like, you're teaching your children all the time to believe that God is speaking to them personally. So I can't now come and say you are lying. You are going to break yourself.
Sure.
Because he said, I sat down, I kept quiet, and the voice in my head told me and showed me. I went and took the video. He did a perfect backflip. Landed perfectly right on the edge, but he landed.
He didn't break himself.
And he's like, I told you God showed me how to do it. what, you know?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I'm like, this is when we get to learn.
Yeah.
And this is when we teach them these notions of believing in themselves. More than believing in what other people say that's negative about them. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, it's such a beautiful interaction there. And again, there's so much. So I've got many voices in my head. So many voices in my head right now. So, one, just think back about, whoever's listening, right? Think back to the many times you had an opportunity to exit the mediocrity that you sort of find yourself in right now. The many times you could exit the toxic environment, this depressing, state of your professional life or academic life. There's so many of them, right? And many of those doors you sort of walk past, not because they were closed, but because they led down a very scary path, doing a backflip on a very small trampoline, right? And you allowed fear to regulate, right? And this obsession we have with safety and security, familiarity, right? And so
comfort of the knowing.
Yes, and so you find yourself stuck where you are, right? But you've had ample opportunities to exit, right? Ample opportunities to exit, right? And even take a camera along to take pictures of that failing and that learning and growing, and eventually the success of making the perfect landing. And what your son sort of teaches me right now is that I'm not failing because of lack of opportunities, right? I'm failing because I allow fear, to take over, to regulate, to dictate how far I go, where I go. And of course someone right now is thinking, but we can't be that adventurous recklessly, and that's the problem. That's the problem, right? That's exactly the problem, that you're already thinking defensively, even about something that's not even, I'm not even saying that, right? And so I think that's it's a beautiful interaction that you had with your son. I've heard so many testimonies and stories of people saying that, at 40 they left a job and they started a new career, and it was the most humbling but also the most edifying experience of their lives. So you're not stuck, right? You're just scared. Yeah, you're not stuck.
And
you're scared.
I know, I don't remember where I read this. It might be in the Bible. It might be one of the stuff that I've been reading. But I remember faith.
Yeah.
To go back to faith is believing what you're asking for is done.
Yeah.
Not that it will be done. Is saying that I have prayed, I'm getting 40 billion, God. and knowing that it is, and walking with that belief that it is done, and then listening to that voice to say, okay, now navigate here, navigate there. But faith means that you can't talk about recklessness. You can't talk about fear. I'm scared to take this path because no one has taken it before. Because that is where faith is leading you to. It's unknown. Faith is unknown. I mean, to be honest, God is unknown. No one knows anything about God, but yet we believe in Him. But we are scared to believe in the things that He says He can do for us. So, which is success. Most of them lead you to success because I'm sure is in the Bible somewhere. Is that I have brought you here to live more abundantly.
That you may live life and you may have it more abundantly.
More abundantly.
It's actually, I've come that they may have life and have it more abundantly.
Is that Jesus?
Yes, Jesus, That's Jesus.
But I'm glad I have you to correct me.
So, I mean, and I'm so shocked. I'm surprised and blessed in a way that you've mentioned that part of scripture, because we always assume that Jesus came to save us from being human. He came to sort of make us superhuman, right? And I'm going to go back to the point you're making about faith, that like Jesus came to make us, what do you call this? More than humans, superhumans, right? And that's what faith is. It's being more than humans, walking through fires. It's walking
on water,
and I mean that it's in the Bible, right? To describe the kind of power that faith is. It's not predicting your experience with faith. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
So it's not saying...
Because now we want to have the superpowers.
To walk through fire.
To say, me and God.
No. Like it's saying, it's actually talking about the power of faith. That's what faith can do. It's not what you will happen with you and faith, but that's what faith can do. I mean, Jesus talks about it. He says you only need faith the size of a mustard seed.
Yes.
Right? So to move a mountain, just a mustard seed of faith. So it's not you moving the mountain. It's the faith. It's the mustard seed. That's how powerful faith is. That it can move a mountain. Right. That's all you need. That amount of faith, because as small as it is, it can move a mountain. Faith is that powerful.
Because it's not you. You're right. Sorry, I know you remember your points. Me, I forget mine.
Sure.
It's not you, which I think humans bring it back to themselves. When I am religious or spiritual enough, I will be able to do that. It's not you, because God says, "Let me walk through you."
Yeah.
It's that faith. I allow myself to be taken over as a vessel.
Yeah. So we've got faith in our faith. That's the problem. Like, you see. So then your faith is like the power, right?
Yes.
Because you've got this faith, then the faith becomes the power. And I always ask my members, and I said, they've got the slogan, say more prayer, more power. And I'm like, no, it's not your prayer that's powerful, it's the one you pray to. I can pray to this tree for the whole day, right? That's more prayer, but there ain't gonna be no power, right? So what determines the power is the destination and the appeal. The person to which the prayer is appealing to. And that's what's powerful. Faith, that's what's powerful. Not your ability to possess it, not your ability to utilize it and weaponize it, right? It's the faith that's powerful, the size of a mustard seed. That can move a mountain, right? Now, if you're moving by faith and not by sight, we're saying, right, that there's so many reasons for you not to move forward, right? So many reasons not for you to not move forward. There are kids, your children, your spouse, you need this income, you're over indebted. So many reasons to not move forward. But all you need, right, for a breakthrough is faith. The size of. So you've got these mountains that are obstructing you from moving forward, which you raise up in your head, and but all you need is just the faith, the size of a mountain to move. To move. At times, faith doesn't even move those mountains. The song of faith is not even a song of around, over, or away. It's actually a song of through, right? And that's what faith does. It doesn't allow us or enable us to avoid discomfort. It helps us through. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
It's one of my favorites.
Right?
I say that, like, when I'm going through the worst, I'm like,
it's through. You're not
the
stuck.
Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah. The valley becomes permanent when you stop moving. Right? See, remember, though I walk through, I'm walking through. That's what makes it temporary, that you're walking through it. Right?
Can I tell you a story?
Let me finish this. It's an inspired thought. Okay. Right? You're just walking through. So the moment you stop, then the valley becomes permanent. But what makes it permanent? What makes it a permanent dwelling place is you stopping. Is you stop moving. You stop moving.
And observing the valley.
The valley. And you make more of the valley than what it is. It's a temporary location. Your destination is the house of the Lord forever and ever. And by the way, as you walk through the valley, you're walking, so you've got that ability to move through. You've also got the shepherd looking for you with his staff and his rod. You never really see the shepherd, you just see evidence of him being around, right? The staff and the rod are not the shepherd, they're just signs that the shepherd is not too far.
Wow.
Right?
I was saying this prayer recently, and I was like, why the staff and the rod? I mean, aren't we overdoing it? Like, whose mothers would be?
No.
So I'm glad that you've just mentioned this.
It's evidence that so the staff is like a straight stick, right? And the rod has like a hook.
Yes.
So he uses it, the shepherd uses it to hook the sheep out of a hole. So if the sheep falls into a hole, then he hooks it up and then uses the rod to pull the sheep up out of a hole. So the moment the sheep feels the rod and the staff touch against its skin, it knows that the shepherd doesn't see. I don't see the shepherd.
It's the feeling.
It's the feeling that he's here, and we've got ample evidence that the shepherd is around. But we never really focus on the evidence of the shepherd because we focus on the darkness, the depth of the darkness of the valley.
The hole that
dark
we're
in here.
in.
Yeah, it's so dark in here, and then it becomes the valley then becomes sort of like more of a reality than even the presence of the shepherd. But not only do you have the staff and the rod, you've got these two guard dogs that move around with the shepherd. And so the shepherd walks,
in literal. Okay.
Yeah, so the shepherd walks ahead of the flock, and he leads them, he guides them down paths of righteousness, down pools of quiet waters. Right? And then he says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
I will not be afraid.
I will not be afraid, for you are with me. Right? Oh man, I'm gonna start preaching now. Right? And then he says,
favorite, I must say.
And then he says, surely goodness and mercy
will be with me.
Shall follow me. So the shepherd walks ahead to lead the sheep. Then he's got these 2 dogs at the back. They make sure the sheep don't stray. Right? There's a goodness and mercy. So the psalmist says, for us, as we move forward, it's this goodness and mercy that follows us. So even if you make mistakes, even if you fail, even if you struggle, even if you make a, dismal failures of yourself, you've got this goodness and mercy that is always able to make sure that your mistakes, to make sure that your failures are not as extreme as they would have been.
Because at the end of the day, God is always looking out for us.
Yeah. So don't be scared. Go
and that's
forward.
the one thing that I think that is missing in most religious perspectives is He's always there though.
Yeah.
Like present. Yes, you are falling because you do not feel the rod and the staff. Yeah. But goodness and mercy is always there watching to be like, I'm here. Yeah. I'm watching you.
Watch. In fact, the psalmist says, goodness and mercy not follow shall hunt after me.
I will follow.
It's just so it's it's Hebrew. Have you ever heard pastor say in Hebrew, in Greek? I'm gonna throw one of those to you right now. I said it's a Hebrew. So he uses that same word that Jacob was a hunter and used to hunt after animals. Good translators used to follow animals, so to read the footprints, to smell the air, to smell the scent, and to follow the animals and to track them down. So he's actually saying that goodness and mercy hunt after us. They track us down, all the days of our lives, and then we will dwell in the house of the Lord. Not because we've made it, but because we've been led and shepherded to the house of the Lord. So you can never outrun the mercy of God. You can never outrun the goodness of God. To put it simply, you can never, ever, ever, one, we always say this in church, out-sin the love of God, but you can never out-fail God's desire for your success. Yeah.
I hope you guys got that. That is a nugget in our heart.
Yeah. So we don't fail because God no longer desires good for us, or because God is working extra hard for our good. We fail because we fear failure.
Have you ever watched The Life of Pi?
No, the oak in the boat with the tiger.
Yes.
I've always wanted to watch it.
You
but
must.
I mean, they don't shoot each other. There's no fighting. Not some war. I'm joking.
No, there isn't. You have to be like, it's one of those where you're just listening. Really.
Yeah.
But it is such an amazing movie, and I've watched it before, but I had a thing to watch it again recently. So there was a couple of things that intrigued me about the movie. Firstly, this guy is Indian, Hindu, but as he grows up, he goes through. He says he encounters different religions. He first encounters Allah. Well, no, he talks about how he first encountered through Hinduism his mom's god. I forgot which one it was. And then he tells the story about that. And then as he walks, he encounters Allah. And I mean, he talks about the aspects of these different things where he gets, and then he encounters Jesus. Yeah. And that was purely because his brother dared him to go to a church and drink the holy water. Yeah. And then when he gets there, he asks, one of the first things he asks the priest who's there is like, why would your God sacrifice his only child for humans? Yeah. And that's how he starts getting intrigued. Then he keeps going back to learn. So now his father, so every time he comes home, now he's like either, he's Hindu or he's Allah, so he doesn't eat certain things, or he does his prayers, and now he's Christian, so again, he's doing his Christian things. And his dad is like, you can't follow different religions, you need to choose one, it's not the way to do, la 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 la. And the mother's like, but why? Because let him grow, let him learn and settle where he wants to settle, And then he's like, but when he met God was when he was in the boat. Lost by himself with a tiger.
That had tried to eat him.
Was trying to eat him, But as I was watching the movie, and I mean, they don't say this, but I was looking at the many ways luck was on his side. Yes, he's in a boat with a tiger, but he found some food that was hidden. There was a point where he didn't have food, and he was swimming across a place where there's flying fish.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was something called flying fish because I had to go Google it. Is it real?
Yeah.
There was flying fish, and some of the fish were just falling into his boat.
Providence, yeah.
You know what I mean? And at some point he goes where he was like completely thin, he hadn't drank water, he hadn't done anything. His boat stops against this island.
Yeah.
But it's a temporary island. You know, like during the day it's fine, you could eat the fruits, but at night it became carnivorous. I don't know. The water was acidic.
Sure.
So he had to jump out, but he had enough then supply of food
for the day
and water for another journey until he reached land. And for me, it's those goodness and mercies that we don't even see. We are so stuck on, I am stuck in the ocean and there's nothing here for me. And we forget these flying fish
and the Providence,
that keep coming up. These little things that are there to assist us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, you were saying earlier on that faith, you would have loved 40 billion rands. And, you know,
I was
chuckling internally. I mean, I don't know how ethical it is to have 40 billion rands in a place where so many people are poor, you know. Some of our aspirations, you know, really are anti-human, but also faith doesn't only manifest itself in that, or providence manifests itself, as you say, in access to abundance. It also manifests itself in sufficiency, right? And Jesus teaches his disciples how to pray. He says, give us this day our daily bread. Now someone looks at that prayer and says, oh, just bread for today, right? But what Jesus is saying in that prayer is that we can ask God for bread for today, and then we wake up tomorrow and ask him for bread again, and wake up tomorrow and ask him for bread again. What that means is that it's a promise that God is making, that I'll always be here to give you bread each and every single day. We want plenty of bread, then we forget the promise of consistent presence to deliver the bread, right? So God is not actually saying, I'll give you a little bit of bread today so that I'll give you some more tomorrow. It's actually saying, I'll be here every single day. Every time you need bread, I'll be here. That's the promise, and that's the beauty. And that's what we miss, I think, sometimes with faith. We look so much for the grand spectacles that we fail to see the silent evidence of providence, you know. Let me not say much because I'm going to start preaching.
You must continue preaching though. I'm getting 5 minutes.
5 minutes left. You have to wrap up.
I have to wrap up, but I actually wanted to say something, and I know it's going to take us more than 5 minutes to say. But just nuggets then. In totality from what we've discussed, what would you say are some of the best things that we can start using realistically, and I say realistically, to start dismantling, maybe in our homes, maybe in our own personal lives, in our own minds, because it really always starts with you as a person, and therefore then, you know, giving it out to the world. How do we start dismantling these notions of success, especially religiously?
Right. So, one, listen. Like two of the most important spiritual aspects in Christianity involve listening and talking. You can't do one more than the other, right? So reading your Bible, reading the Word of God, that's listening to God speaking, and then praying, which is God now listening to you speak, right? God listening to you talk. And I think it's also should be seen in our interactions. Give as much as you receive. Speak as much as you listen. If you can, try and do the latter more. You know, listen more and speak less, right? I think learning is in listening. We learn more when we listen. We learn nothing when we speak. That is critical. It's important, and it sounds simplistic, right? But it's actually going back to what I was saying, that when you ascribe certain value to how you believe, then you're going to shut people out and you're not going to listen to them. And some of them are conduits of learning, some of them are conduits of blessings that God is sending your way. Some of the blessings we're going to get are not going to come through the hand of a pastor or from a bottle of olive oil, They're not going to come from, Umama Umtandas. They're going to come from some people we have written off, and we have some places that we thought were, residents of evil, and God uses those very same objects, the very same people to bring learning, edification, blessings. So listen, you're on the lookout, watch out more. You'll see God almost everywhere, the providence of God almost everywhere in your life. Two, I'd say to dismantle this. So this is how we learn, right? Growing up. Don't lose the inner child. Don't kill that inner child in you. Remain curious. Remain excited about everything in your life. Remain, like this morning I dropped off my kids and I went to get coffee. I love that part of that ritual of every day, that I drop off my kids and I go get the coffee. It's not even about the coffee. It's just the drive to the place. I get to do this, right? I'm excited about it. I greet the people, I get my coffee, I smell it, and sometimes I don't even finish it. But the experience, of driving, then getting it. How many of those things do you have in your life? Such things, right? That are not about you benefiting from, but it's just a part of you that gets to experience life and where you are, right? Be present where you are. Be present. Be there, be intentional about being present. So I guess that's number 3. So you have these exciting rituals that excite you, that remind you, that bring out your inner child, right? And then and being present, and lose the fear. Say lose the fear.
It's a big one.
Lose the fear. I close this off before Noni kills me, right? We benefit nothing from safety except being safe. Right? That's it. That's all you get from trying to stay safe. It's being safe. No growth, no multiplication, nothing. Just safety. That's all you get from being safe.
But then you're stagnant.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you get. Just safety from being safe, right? But when you dare to explore, right? When you dare to dream, right? When you dare to, be curious about your world, then the worst that could happen is that you lose what you have. But then there's an exciting journey ahead of rebuilding, learning new ways of making and of acquiring and of building your life. That's the worst that could happen, is that you lose this. But then the exciting thing is that you rebuild.
There's more.
Yeah, there's more. Lose the fear. It does nothing for you.
Thank you. As usual, it has been inspiration.
Amen.
I always love having a conversation with you.
Thank you.
I'm sure you guys would agree. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Pastor Blose again. If we were in a studio, I'd be like,
You can clap.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on another Imizizi conversation.
Cheers.